Well, Davos is always billed as the World Economic Forum, and everybody knows that there are lots of very important businessmen and bankers in town, but you shouldn't neglect the political element of it. There's an incredible array of political leaders here: the President of Iran, the Prime Minister of Israel, the Secretary of State of the United States, various European leaders and so on, and they use this as an occasion to have informal meetings amongst themselves, also to meet people like me, the press, and get their messages across. So there's quite a strong diplomatic element. It's like a kind of mini UN General Assembly. Well, the appearance of the President of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, is very significant. It's the first time a President of Iran has appeared here for almost a decade. I think the last time was 2004, and that's a sort of signal of his effort to reintegrate Iran into the world community. His speech was in some ways rather bland, but he set a target for Iran to be one of the largest economies in the world within 10 years and made it clear that that was very much a driving force behind the diplomacy on things like the nuclear issue, because he wants to get Iran sort of back in good odor with the Western world. And he made that clear. But there's the other issue as well as Iran that came up, is Syria, because of course there's a brutal war going on in Syria. Iran is very much on the side of Assad, and meanwhile on the other side of Switzerland, in Geneva, there are supposed peace talks going on about Syria, from which Iran was excluded at the very last moment. Rouhani's position, which he stated before, but again stated for a Davos audience, is that essentially the real problem is that what he calls terrorists, brutal terrorists, i.e. the opposition to Assad, are flooding into the country, and that needs to be dealt with first. But he did then say that in the long run the solution has to be political and has to be free and fair elections within Syria. Okay. The Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, talking to me in front of a group of journalists, gave an answer that I think some people found rather shocking when I asked him about the possibility of a war with China. I thought it was worth asking quite bluntly. He said, he didn't say it's inconceivable. In fact, he compared the situation now to the situation between Britain and Germany before the First World War, which obviously ultimately culminated in conflict. I should add, though, as somebody who was there, it wasn't as kind of blood-curdling in its mannerism as some people later wrote it up. I mean, it was almost a rather discursive answer, a rather professorial answer, but you can't take away from the fact that he was emphasizing just how drastically bad relations are with China. And I think the Chinese, when they have their say, will also contribute to this tense atmosphere, because Abe's position is that China should talk directly to Japan. He called again for military-to-military discussions. He wants to talk to the leadership. But the Chinese are just so angry with Japan over these disputed islands that they are refusing to talk to the Japanese government. And that is, of course, a very tense situation. It's very hard to know whether Davos actually fulfills its alleged spirit of Davos, this idea of creating harmony and peaceful relations between nations on a concrete geopolitical level. A lot of meetings, of course, take place behind closed doors. You know, political leaders will be meeting all over this town, talking to each other, and they will be having discussions that are confidential. But I think more generally, there is a value in having, say, the President of Iran present himself, take quite difficult questions, or, again, in that session that I moderated where Shinzo Abe, the Japanese Prime Minister, was talking, he had to take quite tough questions from a Chinese journalist, from a South Korean journalist, and although the atmosphere was tense, it was civil. They were able to speak to each other, and I think that has a value in itself.